For my 50th birthday, my family kept telling me, just wait, something big is coming. My wife smiled every time I asked. Be patient, she said. On the day of, I came home to an empty house. No note, no call. Hours later, I saw a photo on social media. My wife, my kids, my in-laws, all at a beach resort. My son wrote, he won't even notice we gone LOL. I didn't comment, I didn't call, I just watched. 3 days later, my WhatsApp was flooded with 47 desperate messages begging me. I am at 3:27 a.m., sitting in my empty house, scrolling through vacation photos of my family, a vacation I wasn't invited to. On my 50th birthday, 25 years of marriage, 2 kids I thought I raised right, and this is what it amounts to, forgotten, or worse, deliberately left behind. Let me back up. This mess started about 2 months ago. My wife, Willow, began acting weird whenever my upcoming 50th birthday came up. Not bad weird, but secretive weird. Whispering on the phone, closing her laptop when I walked into the room. That sort of thing. My daughter Piper, 20, started giving me these little smiles and saying stuff like, Dad, you're gonna love what's coming for the big 50. Even my son Tomas, 23, who's usually too cool to care about family stuff, was dropping hints. I'm not gonna lie, it got me excited. 50 is supposed to be a milestone, right? I didn't expect anything crazy expensive because we're not that kind of family. We're comfortable, but not rolling in it. Piper's college tuition takes a chunk of our savings, and I just helped Tomas with the down payment on his first apartment last month. That was $4,000 I didn't really have to spare. But that's what dads do, right? All the secrecy had me thinking maybe they were planning a surprise party. Willow kept telling me to be patient whenever I tried to fish for details. My father-in-law, Otis, even called me out of the blue last week, something he never does unless he needs something fixed at his house, just to ask what day I was taking off for my birthday. I told him I had requested the actual day, this past Tuesday. Except, I didn't get the day off. At 6:15 a.m. on my birthday, my boss called asking if I could come in because we had an emergency at the Riverside project. Someone had to be there. And guess who that someone always is? I called Willow from the car to tell her I'd be late, but would definitely be home by dinner. She sounded strange on the phone, distracted. Just said, that works out fine, and hung up quick. I spent my birthday dealing with a water main break and equipment problems. No one at work even knew it was my birthday. I didn't mention it because I'm not that guy. And honestly, I was looking forward to whatever was waiting at home. I even stopped and bought a bottle of the good whiskey on the way back. Figured I deserved at least that much. At 5:53 p.m., I pulled into my driveway. No extra cars parked outside. So much for the surprise party. House was completely dark. Weird, but not alarming. Maybe they were hiding. The house was empty. No decorations, no cake, no wife, no kids, no note on the counter explaining where everyone was. I checked my phone, no messages. Called Willow, straight to voicemail. Called Thomas, same thing. Texted Piper, nothing. By 7:30 p.m., I was sitting alone at my kitchen table, staring at that unopened whiskey bottle, wondering if there had been an accident or something. Called the local hospital, nothing. Called Willow's sister, Lindsay, no answer. At 8:14 p.m., still alone on my birthday, I opened my whiskey and poured a glass. That's when I decided to check Instagram. I don't post much, just follow the kids to see what they're up to sometimes. And there it was, posted 3 hours earlier. A photo of my entire family, Willow, Thomas, Piper, Otis, and his wife Kinsley, and Lindsay, all smiling on a white sand beach, cocktails in hand, at some fancy resort. Tomas had captioned it, family vacation mode activated. He won't even notice we gone LOL. He won't even notice. The comments were worse. Willow replied with a laughing emoji, and so true. Lindsay added something about workaholic husbands, not appreciating the finer things. Piper at least hadn't commented, but she was there in the photos, sunglasses on, looking like she was having the time of her life. I sat there for, I don't know how long, just scrolling through more photos they'd posted. Group dinners, jet ski rentals, selfies by the pool, all time-stamped and geotagged to a resort I'd never even heard of. Starting 2 days earlier. Remember that Alanis Morissette song about irony? Well, it's ironic that for years I felt guilty about working too much, missing school events, sometimes being tired on weekends, all to provide for these people. Piper's college fund that I've been putting $500 into every month since she was born. Tomas's apartment down payment that meant I couldn't replace my 10-year-old truck this year. The mortgage I've never missed a payment on. The vacations I couldn't afford to take because someone always needed something more important. I don't know what kicked in. Shock, rage, or some weird sense of calm. But I didn't call them. Didn't text. Didn't comment on the photos. Just poured another whiskey and started thinking. Thinking hard. First thing I did was check our bank accounts. Sure enough, $4,000 had been withdrawn from our joint savings account last Friday. Exactly the same amount I'd given to Tomas for his apartment. Coincidence? I don't think so. I scrolled back through older social media posts and found Otis had been making comments about a special family trip for weeks. So this wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. Planned without me. Planned around me, planned despite my birthday. By midnight, I'd gone from hurt to pissed to ice-cold calculation. I opened my laptop and started documenting everything. Screenshots of the posts, bank statements, a timeline of the lies they'd told me about my birthday surprise. See, here's something people forget about the quiet, reliable guy who just keeps showing up. We notice things. We remember things. And when we finally had enough, we know exactly where all the bodies are buried. I spent my birthday night making a complete accounting of our finances. 25 years of marriage laid out in Excel spreadsheets. Who paid for what? Who contributed what? Who sacrificed what? The numbers told a story they wouldn't like. Around 2 a.m., I found something else. A credit card statement in Willow's email. Yeah, we share passwords, or used to, anyway, for a card I didn't know existed. $113,000 in debt built up over the last 3 years. Designer clothes, spa days, lunches with Lindsay that somehow cost $200 each, and recent charges from the resort they were staying at, almost $6,000 so far. I'm not a guy who usually cries, but I'll admit I felt that pressure behind my eyes. Not sad tears, angry ones. Wondering how I could be so invisible to the people I've given everything. Morning came and still no messages asking if I was okay. No happy birthday texts, nothing. Just more beach photos and a video of Thomas doing karaoke with Otis. The tagline, Dad would hate this LOL. I showered, went to work, came home, checked social media again. Day 2 of their vacation was in full swing. Comments from Willow's friends asking how the resort was. Her reply, heaven. So nice to get away from real life for a while. Real life. That's me. I'm real life. The thing she needed to get away from. I poured another whiskey and made some decisions. First, I called my bank at 9 a.m. sharp on day 2 and rerouted my upcoming paycheck to a new account they set up for me. Second, I called my buddy Cody, who went through a divorce last year, and asked for his lawyer's number. Third, I started moving Willow's things to the guest bedroom. I wasn't being hasty. I was being methodical. Like when you discover termites in your foundation, you don't just patch over it and hope for the best. You dig down, find out how deep the damage goes, and decide if the structure is worth saving. On day 3 of their vacation, and day 2 after my forgotten birthday, I finally got a text from Piper, just a casual, hey dad, how's it going? Like they weren't all at a beach resort without me, like it hadn't been my milestone birthday, like everything was normal. I didn't answer. An hour later, Tomas texted asking if he'd left his laptop charger in his old room. Nothing about where they were, nothing about my birthday. I didn't answer that either. By evening, the messages started getting concerned. Willow texted asking if I was mad about something. Piper called twice. Tomas sent a weird message saying, Mom's freaking out a little. Can you just text her back? I didn't answer. Instead, I posted my first Instagram photo in months. Just me at home with a birthday cake I bought myself from the grocery store. No caption, no tags, just a date stamp. That's when the dam broke. At exactly 9:44 p.m., on day 3 of them being gone, my WhatsApp started blowing up. Message after message. Willow in full panic mode. Tomas actually showing concern for once. Piper sending voice messages that got increasingly tearful. By midnight, I counted 47 messages across all platforms. Texts, WhatsApp, Instagram, DMs, even emails. The last one from Willow just said, we're coming home tomorrow. Please be there. We need to talk. Oh, we'll talk all right. But first, I needed to make one more stop to pick up new locks for the doors, because some lessons about taking people for granted need to be carved in stone, not written in sand. Update 1. First. Thanks for all the support on my last post. Didn't expect thousands of comments. Some of you called me a doormat. Others said I should burn everything to the ground. Appreciate the fire, but I'm more of a slow burn guy. Always have been. So the 47 messages. Message number 1 came at 9:44 p.m., exactly 3 days into their beach vacation. Just a simple, Norman, are you there, from Willow. By message number 47 at 3:28 a.m., she'd graduated to, please just answer me. I'm freaking out. I've been married 25 years. Never once in all that time have I deliberately ignored my wife when she needed me. Never once have I shut her out when she was worried. Even during our worst fights, I always picked up the phone. But there's a first time for everything. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on our back deck, watching those messages pour in while scrolling through their Instagram feed. The contrast was something else. Willow typing, Norman, please, I'm worried, while her profile showed her grinning at a beachfront restaurant just 2 hours earlier. Tomas asking if I was okay while tagging himself at a jet ski rental. Piper sending tearful voice messages from a poolside cabana. Around 5 a.m., I made coffee and started methodically documenting everything. Screenshots of social media, bank statements, text threads. I printed it all out and organized it in a folder. Sounds crazy, but it helped me think. The new deadbolt and doorknob set sat on the kitchen counter, still in the packaging. I wasn't sure yet if I'd install them. That felt like a line I might not be able to uncross. At 7:15 a.m., the first call from Otis came through. I let it go to voicemail. He left a 2-minute message that started concerned and ended with him saying I was behaving like a child. Classic Otis. Always thought I wasn't good enough for his daughter. Always made little comments about my modest house or reliable car, code for, you're not as successful as I wanted for Willow. I went to work like normal. Did my job. Came home. The messages kept coming. Tomas, Dad, seriously, this isn't funny anymore. Mom is having a meltdown. Piper, Daddy, please just text back so we know you're alive. Norman, I've called the neighbors and they say your truck is there. Why aren't you answering? Hey Norman, everyone's worried about you. Whatever you're upset about, this isn't the way to handle it. Grow up. That last one from Lindsay almost made me break my silence. Almost. But I remembered her comment about her workaholic husband and kept quiet. I spent that evening setting up my financial firewall, called the credit card companies and removed Willow as an authorized user on my 2 main cards. logged into our mortgage account and made sure the next payment, due in 3 days, would come from my new, separate account, changed my direct deposit information at work. Then I did something that even surprised me. I made a spreadsheet breaking down our household expenses with cold hard percentages. Who paid for what? Who contributed what for the last 10 years? The numbers told a story Willow wouldn't like. 82% of our joint expenses came from my income. 94% of our retirement savings came from me. 100% of the kids' college funds came from me. What did Willow contribute? Looking at our joint account history, most of her deposits went back out immediately. For hair appointments, lunches with Lindsay, clothes, and what she called household necessities that somehow always included expensive candles and throw pillows nobody was allowed to actually throw. Does that sound bitter? Yeah, maybe it is. But 25 years of feeling vaguely guilty for working too much hits different when you realize it was your work funding their fun. Around midnight, I found a text thread between Willow and Lindsay from 2 weeks earlier. Willow, should we even tell Norman about the trip? Why bother? He'll just complain about the cost. True LOL, it's not like he ever pays attention to anything but work anyway. He probably won't notice until the weekend, if that soon. That was the moment something inside me hardened. I'd been holding on to a tiny hope that maybe, there was some massive misunderstanding. That text killed it. By day 4 of their vacation, the messages had a new tone. Anger. Dad, WTF, Mom's been crying all night. What is your problem? I don't know what game you're playing, but this is cruel. Otis, Norman, you're proving exactly what I've always thought about you. Selfish and immature. Day 5 brought panic as they realized I was still radio silent. We're cutting the vacation short. Coming home tomorrow. Please be there. Dad, I'm scared. Something happened to you. If you're doing this on purpose, it's seriously F'd up. I still didn't respond, but I did start making preparations for their return. Moved Willow's clothes and personal items to the guest room, changed the Wi-Fi password, installed a passcode lock on my computer. Small things that sent a message. You can't pretend nothing happened. That night, I received a particularly revealing voice message from Piper. She was crying, voice all choked up, saying she was sorry about my birthday, that she'd wanted to call me, but Grandma Kinsley said it would ruin the surprise they were planning. That she felt weird about the trip, but everyone made her feel like she was overreacting. That Otis had paid for most of it as a family bonding experience. I nearly called her back. Nearly. But then I remembered her in those beach photos, smiling without a care in the world, not looking bothered at all. 20-year-olds are adults who make their own decisions. The morning they were due to return, I finally installed the new deadbolt. Not to lock them out permanently. I'm not that petty, but to make a point. They'd need to ring the doorbell, to face me, to acknowledge what they'd done before walking back into our home like nothing happened. I took the day off work and waited. At 2:47 p.m., I got a text from Willow saying their flight had landed at 4:32 p.m. I heard their Uber pulling into the driveway, multiple voices, luggage wheels on concrete, then silence, which I'm guessing was the moment they realized their keys didn't work anymore. The doorbell rang. I took my time answering it. When I did, I found a tableau of sunburned, exhausted faces trying to manufacture casual smiles. Willow clutching a gift bag that definitely hadn't been packed in their original luggage. Tomas looking everywhere but at me. Piper on the verge of tears. Otis and Kinsley standing behind them with matching expressions of disapproval. I just stood there, filling the doorway, silent. Willow tried first, started with how worried they'd been, how they'd called hospitals, how they'd cut their trip short because they were so concerned. Then pivoted to how the trip had been planned as a pre-birthday celebration, but things had gotten complicated and they were going to surprise me when they got back with a special dinner. I didn't say a word, just pulled out my phone, opened Instagram, and held up the screen with Tomas's post. He won't even notice we gone, LOL. The silence that followed was something special. Tomas stared at his shoes. Piper started actually crying. Willow tried to grab my phone, which I easily moved away. Otis stepped forward, saying this was ridiculous. They needed to come inside and talk like adults. I finally spoke, told Otis he wasn't welcome in my house today, that he could drop the luggage and leave. The look on his face, like he'd been slapped. For probably the first time in his life, someone had told him no, told him to leave. The great Otis, used to everyone dancing to his tune, stood there sputtering on my doorstep while I stared him down. Kinsley tried to diffuse things, saying they were all tired from traveling. Maybe they could talk tomorrow. I said tomorrow worked. For everyone but Otis. Ever. After they left, I let Willow, Tomas, and Piper in. The house felt different with them in it. Smaller. Tense. Willow noticed her things missing from our bedroom immediately and demanded to know what I'd done. That's when I brought out my folder. The screenshots, the bank statement, the expense breakdown, laid it all out on the kitchen table and told them I had just one question. When exactly did I become so worthless to this family? Willow tried to turn it around, said I was being dramatic, that it was just a vacation, that they'd planned to celebrate my birthday when they got back. I showed her the text thread with Lindsay. Her face went white. Tomas tried to downplay his Instagram caption, said it was just a joke, that everyone exaggerates on social media. I showed him his own comments from the past year, all the little digs about me being absent, being boring, being typical dad. His excuses dried up. Piper just cried. But even through the tears, she let slip that the trip had been planned for months, that it was originally supposed to include me, but Otis had convinced Willow it could be a family reset without my negative energy bringing everyone down. By 7 p.m., we'd reached the heart of it, the ugly truth nobody wanted to say out loud. They'd created a narrative about me. Norman the boring provider, Norman the absent father, Norman the workaholic. That made it easy to justify treating me like garbage. They'd convinced themselves I wouldn't care about being excluded from my own family, that I wouldn't notice, that I wouldn't feel. And the most painful realization? They weren't totally wrong. I had let work become my identity. I had missed events for overtime. I had been quiet when I should have spoken up. But I was speaking up now. I told them I'd moved most of my money to a separate account, that I'd pay the mortgage and utilities for 3 months while Willow figured out her next steps, that I'd continue supporting Piper's education directly, but not through their discretionary spending, that they had 3 months to either rebuild our marriage on new terms or prepare for divorce. Thomas stormed out, saying I was being unfair. Piper went to her room in tears. Willow just sat at the table, staring at the stack of evidence I'd compiled, looking like someone had just told her Santa wasn't real. Around midnight, my phone pinged with one final message from Willow. I never meant for any of this to happen. The trip was supposed to be your gift, some time alone to relax. We were going to surprise you with something special when we got back. I don't know how things got so twisted. I read it 3 times. Each time, my reaction was the same, pure disbelief. Even now, even after everything, she was still spinning, still rewriting reality. I typed out my response carefully. I have the receipts, Willow, all 47 of them, plus about 100 more you don't even know about yet. The time for lies is over. Then I turned off my phone and went to sleep in my own bed for the first time in days. Alone, but not lonely. There's a difference. Tomorrow would bring hard conversations and harder decisions, but for the first time in 25 years, those decisions would be on my terms. Finally. Update. First morning after the confrontation, I woke up at 4:17 a.m. to the sound of someone crying, muffled, but definitely coming from inside the house. Took me a minute to realize it was Willow in the guest room. Weird thing, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, just nothing. For those asking for updates, it's been 2 weeks since my family returned from their beach getaway. 2 weeks of awkward breakfasts and tense dinners. 2 weeks of whispered phone calls and slammed doors. 2 weeks of reality crashing down on 25 years of marriage. The morning after they returned, I expected big dramatic scenes, tearful apologies, desperate promises to change. That's not what happened. What happened was, Willow came downstairs at 7:30 a.m., made coffee like it was any normal day, and asked if I'd gotten it out of my system yet, like my reaction was some kind of tantrum that needed to run its course. I just looked at her for a long moment, then slid my phone across the counter with the screenshots still open. The ones where she and Lindsay discussed whether I'd even noticed they were gone. The ones where she laughed at Tomas's caption. She stared at them like she was seeing them for the first time. Then tried a new angle, said her phone must have been hacked, that she never wrote those things, that someone must have used her account. At 7:43 a.m. exactly, I realized my wife of 25 years would rather invent an elaborate conspiracy theory than admit she'd been callous and cruel. That's when I handed her the printed bank statement. Highlighted every withdrawal from our joint account for the trip. Showed her the credit card statements from her secret card. Laid out how I'd supported this family for decades while she'd built up $133,000 in hidden debt. You want to know the craziest part? She didn't even seem that concerned about the money. Just kept saying Otis would help her pay it off. That I was being petty, focusing on dollars and cents when the real issue was my workaholism. Isn't that something? I'm the bad guy for working 60-hour weeks to pay for everything, including her shopping habit. The kids were a different story. Tomas showed up around noon that first day, hungover and defensive. Started in about how I was overreacting, how it was just a stupid social media post, how I was being toxic by making such a big deal about everything. So I showed him my social media feed, the comments from his friends. The ones saying stuff like, LOL, your dad sounds like my dad, total boomer energy, and bro, just tell him you're busy when he tries to hang, that's what I do. I asked him what kind of man mocks his father online to look cool to his friends. What kind of son takes $4,000 for an apartment down payment, then spends the same amount partying at a beach resort 2 weeks later? He didn't have good answers. Just mumbled something about how I don't understand how social media works and left. Hasn't been back in 5 days. Piper was different. She actually apologized, said she felt pressured by Kinsley and Otis to go along with the trip, said she'd wanted to call me on my birthday, but Willow told her I was probably too busy anyway. I believe her, mostly. But I also saw her in those beach photos, grinning at sunset cocktail hours that she's not even legally old enough to attend. Not exactly looking tortured by guilt. So yes, I'm still paying for her tuition, but directly to the school now. Not through the joint account where money mysteriously vanishes. Around day 3 after their return, things escalated. Otis showed up unannounced at 6:15 p.m., right as I was microwaving leftovers. Walked in without knocking because Willow had given him the new door code. Started in immediately about how I was being unreasonable, how I was destroying this family over a misunderstanding. I didn't yell, didn't throw him out, just calmly asked him how much the resort cost. He puffed up, said that wasn't the point. I asked again, exactly how much did you spend taking my family on vacation without me? That's when he dropped the bombshell. $600 for 5 people for 5 days. Do the math. That's over $300 per person per day. I've never spent that much on any vacation in my life. Our family trips were always budget-friendly. Camping, road trips, the occasional weekend at a basic hotel with a pool for the kids. I asked Otis if he knew how much I had in Piper's college fund. He didn't answer. I told him anyway, $25,000, scraped together $500 at a time over years. Money that could have gone toward vacations, or a better car, or home improvements. But I chose her future instead. Then I asked him how much he'd contributed to his granddaughter's education. His face went red, started sputtering about how that wasn't the point, how he'd created opportunities for Willow and the kids in other ways. Opportunities like teaching them it's okay to exclude the person who pays for their lives. Opportunities like showing them that loyalty and respect matter less than beaches and cocktails. I told him he had 30 seconds to leave my house before I called the police to report trespassing. He left at 6:27 p.m., haven't heard from him directly since. Willow lost it after that. Called me cruel for speaking to her father that way. Said I was jealous of him. Said the real reason I was upset was because I could never provide the kind of experiences for my family that he could. And you know what? There might be a grain of truth in that. I've never had Otis's money. Never will. But I've had Otis's time. 25 years of it. Time I spent working to build something for us while he was off enjoying early retirement on inherited wealth. By the end of the first week, the battle lines were drawn. Willow moved in with Lindsay temporarily. Tomas stopped answering my texts completely. Piper started coming around more often, usually when Willow wasn't there. The family split into factions. Willow's siblings and parents rallied around her, posting vague, supportive messages on social media about standing by family during hard times. My sister, who lives 3 states away, sent me a care package with whiskey and a note saying she always thought Willow was kind of a princess. Then the financial reality hit. 10 days after returning from the trip, Willow called in a panic because her credit card was declined at some boutique. I'd removed her as an authorized user on all my accounts. She wanted to know if I was going to keep punishing her by withholding money. I explained calmly, like talking to a child, that I wasn't withholding anything. I was simply separating our finances. Her income was still hers. My income was now mine. The joint account had exactly 3 months of mortgage payments and utility money, and after that, we'd either have new arrangements or separate lives. That's when she started crying. Real tears this time. Not about our marriage or my feelings or the family being torn apart. About money. At 11:43 p.m. that night, I got a text from Otis. Just 4 words, let's discuss a settlement. I didn't answer. There was nothing to settle. Yet. No divorce papers filed. No lawyers officially retained, though I'd had 3 consultations. Just a family in freefall, finally facing gravity after years of pretending they could float above reality on my dime. 2 weeks into this new normal, something unexpected happened. Tomas showed up at the house at 8:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. Unshowered, eyes red, looking like he'd been up all night. He wasn't there to apologize exactly, more like he'd finally done some math of his own. His new apartment, the one I helped with the down payment, turns out the monthly costs were more than he'd calculated. Utilities, internet, groceries, all the little things that magically appeared at home but cost actual money in the real world. He'd blown through his savings already. The vacation had cost him more than expected too. He'd put excursions and drinks on his own credit card, assuming he could just figure it out later. Now later had arrived, and he was drowning. Part of me, a small, hurt part, wanted to tell him this was a valuable life lesson and send him on his way. But the dad in me couldn't do it. Instead, I made him breakfast, taught him how to make a basic budget spreadsheet, showed him exactly what things actually cost in the real world, the world I'd been silently managing while he posted about what a boomer his dad was. By lunchtime, he looked shell-shocked, not just from the financial reality check, but from seeing, maybe for the first time, what I actually did for this family beyond just existing as a punchline for his social media jokes. He didn't say sorry. Not directly. But he did something that hit me harder than any apology could have. He deleted all his social media apps, right there at the kitchen table. Said he needed to get his head straight without the constant noise. Asked if he could come over on Sundays for me to help him figure out this adulting process. Willow's been a different story. After the initial shock wore off, she shifted into full damage control mode. Started calling mutual friends to explain this. Posted a long, vague Facebook update about healing from unexpected life changes that made it sound like I'd had a breakdown. Lindsay's been her bullhorn, telling anyone who will listen that I'm having a midlife crisis, that I'm being financially abusive by cutting Willow off, that the vacation was supposed to be a gift to me, not an exclusion. I haven't bothered countering any of it. The people who know me, really know me, have seen through it immediately. The rest, not worth my energy. Piper's been caught in the middle, feels guilty for going on the trip, feels guilty for still wanting a relationship with me, feels guilty for being angry at her mom. Just guilt all around. I've tried to make it clear she doesn't need to choose sides, that I'll always be her dad, regardless of what happens with Willow, that her college is still covered, that her future is secure. 3 weeks in, Willow finally came by to talk. for real. Sat at the kitchen counter where we've had breakfast for 20 years. Asked if I was really going through with this, if I was really willing to throw away our marriage over one mistake. I pulled out my phone, showed her the 47 messages again, asked which one acknowledged it was my birthday, which one apologized for excluding me from a family vacation, which one showed any real concern beyond fear of getting caught or exposed. She couldn't point to a single one. Then I asked her the question that had been burning in me for weeks. When did I become someone you could just write off? When did I become so invisible that you thought I wouldn't notice or care? What she said next changed everything. She said it wasn't sudden, that for years, maybe a decade, she'd felt like we were living parallel lives, that she'd tried to connect, but I was always working, always tired, always focused on providing rather than being present. That eventually, she just adapted, built a life that didn't require my active participation. And you know what? That hit hard. Because there's some truth there. I have prioritized providing over being present sometimes. I have missed events for work. I have been too tired for date nights after 60-hour weeks. But I also coached Tomas's little league games, helped Piper with science projects, mowed the lawn and fixed the leaky faucets and kept the cars running and the roof over our heads. I showed up in all the ways I knew how, just not the ways Willow wanted, apparently. We talked for 4 hours that day. Real talk, hard talk, about expectations and resentments and the slow drift that happens when two people stop seeing each other clearly. At midnight, she asked if there was any chance for us. If I could forgive her, for the trip, for the secret credit card, for the years of small betrayals that led to the big one. I told her I honestly didn't know. That forgiveness might be possible, but forgetting wasn't. That trust, once broken, leaves scars even when it heals. She moved the last of her things to Lindsay's the next day. Said she needed time to figure out who she is without me, whatever that means. It's been 1 month now since my 50th birthday. 1 month since I came home to an empty house and discovered just how invisible I'd become to the people I thought were my world. Some days I'm angry, some days I'm just tired, but most days I'm finding a strange new peace in being visible to myself for the first time in decades. I've started swimming at the community center 3 mornings a week, been going to happy hour with guys from work occasionally, even joined a hiking group that meets on Saturdays. Tomas comes by every Sunday now for what he calls adulting lessons. We cook dinner together, go over his budget, talk about things that matter. Piper splits her time between Lindsay's place and mine, navigating the new family geography with as much grace as a 20-year-old can muster. Willow texts daily, alternating between nostalgic memories and practical questions about bills. I answer the practical, leave the rest on read. Yesterday I got a letter from a divorce attorney representing her. Standard stuff. Reasonable requests, actually. She's not going for the jugular financially, which surprised me. As for me, I finally changed my social media status from married to it's complicated, because it is. Life is complicated. Families are complicated. Love and hurt and forgiveness are complicated. But one thing isn't complicated anymore. I'm not invisible. Not to my family, not to my friends, and most importantly, not to myself. And that visibility, that was worth the price of a beach vacation I never got to take.